guys, today I'm here with Justin Ngoga, who is the author of the Rwanda Cultural Awareness book that I was talking about the other day, and he's just done a new print run of it. So how many have we got now?
Like 300 copies.
300 copies on the shelves in Kigali, and we're just going to have a bit of a chat about the book. Yeah, so I had some questions. Firstly, sort of, what got you into this in the first place? Like, why did you set up a cultural awareness book, but also you do courses, don't you? What kind of got that going?
Good, thank you so much. That's a good question. Before starting this, I worked with several international organizations in different capacities. I was a Peace Corps, language and cross-culture, trainer. Yeah. I worked with, Wanaka Fund as the training and development, director, and part of my job was to give onboarding, orientation, to international staff. And I was like, oh, we actually don't have a place, for people to have appropriate cultural orientation in Rwanda. And I saw a lot of people really struggling with culture shock, and they didn't have a place to go.
What was the giveaway for you? What was the culture shock? How could you tell that somebody was struggling?
I know the culture shock curve. I know someone could be in the honeymoon and they're very excited, and then the next few weeks you see them really frustrated. They don't want to talk to people, and they just lock themselves in their homes, and they're always complaining. That's very important.
How do you know if that's culture shock or just British? Because those two things are the same.
You're right. You really need to know the person to be able to tell this is culture shock. This is personality. So as I told you, in the first few days when someone comes into a new culture, then they'll be
you're
blooming,
on a high.
they'll be happy, they'll be talking to people, they will be very positive about everything they're experiencing, and then you see them in after few weeks, and they're really down,
How long do you feel that it takes people to, because you come and you're on this high. That was definitely true for me. I arrived, I was like, it's a new place, it's a new country, really, really on a high. I think around 6 months is when I just went, I can't, deal with anything. And then about another 6 months for me, I was
coming up.
But then it did this for many, many years.
That's good. It's really hard to tell, because it varies depending on the person. And if this person has traveled a lot, has lived in the other cultures, then maybe it can take long for them to really, hit the, culture shock, and maybe it won't be that intense. But if someone, hasn't traveled to other cultures, and maybe this a very new experience to them, it won't take long. Again, it also depends on the, cultural support system that you have, or also if you just remain in your bubble, you're not exposed to the communities, and so you just remain in your what I call expat bubble,
So the people that you get
and
coming,
a comfort zone,
the comfort zone. So the people that you get coming to you, do you find, why are they here? Are they mostly working for NGOs? Are they mostly working for ministries? Are they business people? Who are they?
It used to be NGOs way back, but now it's NGOs, international organizations, NGOs, and companies, people coming to start businesses here, or people working with international businesses here. And very recently I've been seeing just new people relocating to Rwanda just to leave or just come and retire here, so it's three categories, people working with NGOs, business people, or people working in businesses, and just individual people relocating to Rwanda.
Do you ever come across any diaspora who are returning and aren't sure how
that's really good.
Curious.
Most diasporas that are returning, they don't necessarily come to me because they have families that they're coming back to, and it's easy for them to actually
get the support system.
Get the support system that they need, because they have families here.
So like when people do come, I mean, I was very lucky. When I first came here, I came with VSO. So there was a huge network of people who had been here for years, people who had just arrived, and as an organisation, they really knew what the challenges were, and they were very good at talking to me about those. But I often wonder, for people who come on their own, how do they get involved with the community? How do they meet people?
That's really hard. And that's what made me start the another service, called Relocation Buddy. Which is just a person to like help you, because you don't have family that you come into, you don't have an organization that supporting you. At least you need someone who has a business that you can trust to start like building relationship with, and that person will help you like navigate all the like life, help you find apartment and house, and actually not as a broker, but more as someone who actually negotiates for you, because brokers, they make money on both ends, like customer, the tenant and the landlord. And when the tenant pays more, then they get more. So the good thing with the relocation buddy is
there's nothing in it for
there's
them,
nothing like a percentage. So you just get the person, and then they will negotiate for you. They really fight for you.
Where do you find like people are coming from, like in the world? Where are the most people coming from that you see?
Oh, of course it's Europe, it's America, but recently, like in the last 5 years, I've seen like a big move of African American diaspora coming, to Rwanda. So there's kind of a growing community of African American here.
Okay, so when you started writing your book, is there one thing that I was curious about? Is there one thing in there, if you had to choose the top piece of advice that everybody needs when they get here, or is there one that you can go, right, everybody struggles with this one? Or
oh, that's a really good question, and I was actually expecting that. So there's a kind of a couple of the things that people shouldn't really struggle with. It's how we Rwandans use indirect communication. It's a very indirect, and sometimes people like from direct cultures, they'll be like,
there's no communication
wait,
here
what's
at all.
happening? Please tell me, like, what's it they want to say? Just got the point. And actually, when you do that to Rwandans, it's more like frustrating, because being very direct, sometimes it's like you lack expression, or you kind of rude, so it can be frustrating if you try to push Rwandans to be direct. Another thing is expressiveness. Like we kind of more like a reserved culture, and when we're speaking, we don't put a lot of emotions in speaking, either excited or angry, we just keep it like calm. I also have like a homestays experience that I run here, and one of the students stayed with the family, and then at the end of the program, she really worked almost for a week trying to find a gift that would impress the family. And then she brought the gift, and the host mom was like, oh,
no
thank
expression.
you. She was really upset and offended. She was like, they don't love me. That's all they could say, just thank you. I don't think they like the gift. And then I had to come in and say, hey, like, we don't go like, oh geez, that's really beautiful, thank you, where did you find that? That's not us, Another thing is we are a hierarchical culture, and we respect elders, we respect the authority, and we use titles to for respect. People always, I was surprised when I tell them my young brothers will not call me Justin. They'll call me Papa Annette, because my daughter's name is Annette, and that's how they show me respect. And then Rwanda is because we respect all the people. Then they will also do it to foreigners, and they'll go, if they meet someone, they'll, oh, grandma. And I've seen people being really offended, like, why?
I remember the first time when I changed from being sort of a sister to being mama. The day I remember it, I was like, it was a motor driver. I was like, oh, I'm old now.
And that is, just a respect, like, oh, mama, sister.
Do you think, because sort of when I first came here, there were very, very few Mzungus. Like there weren't that many, and if they were here, they were always working in NGOs, or maybe like mining or something. But over the past few years, there are so many more people coming. Do you think that foreigners are influencing or changing Rwandan culture in any way? Do you think that anything's...
Of course, every culture is dynamic. Is dynamic. So there's no like static and culture. Of course, some cultures are more like strict, others are more loose. But this, like whenever you meet, of course, with global mobility and technology, so people are coming together. And of course, there'll be changes, like people adapt other cultures. But I won't say there's like a big change. No, because that's not how culture works. There's still, you see like people like what another thing that is a kind of shock, but I talked about it when I was talking about expressiveness. So when taking pictures. Normally, generally, Rwandans, at least Rwandan male, they don't smile. So just keep our face, But of course, that's maybe one of the things that I've seen kind of changing is people smiling when taking pictures.
What do you tell your clients about Mzungu? How do you help them to understand that one?
That's a good question. So to me, Mzungu is not to me, like generally, like when people say Mzungu, it's not like being racist, but it's just like I don't know.
I know it's weird because like I think a lot of foreigners, we often think like if you're walking down the road in like another capital city like London and somebody points and shouts white person or black person, it's like okay. But here you do. I mean, you don't hear it again. You don't hear it very much in Kigali anymore.
But when you go, that's what I talked about. Like
it's not meant to be mean.
It's not just meant to be mean. But again, it's not good, So I would tell, and sometimes Mzungu doesn't necessarily mean white people.
Foreigner, traveler.
Yes. Yeah. Like I'll give you an example. I do Airbnb at my house, and whenever, actually in my home. So, but when we have someone who speaks English, regardless of the color of their skin. My children call them Mzungu. Black people, they'll be Mzungu. Okay. Asian, will be Mzungu. So, like, the concept is not really white person. I think the concept is more like, foreign.
What's one thing that you wish foreigners would stop doing? Is there anything that you wish they'd stop doing?
Calling, like. I'm trying to find a good way, I've seen foreigners coming, Westerns coming, and then they see like a poor child, and then they say, oh, that's cute, and when they see like a healthy, good-looking, Rwandan child, then they don't pay attention. To me, it's like, wait, are you interested in poverty or people?
You've seen that happen?
Yes, I've seen people like kind of like, like when they like see like poor neighborhoods, then they, like that's where the attention goes. They will take pictures. They're like, and then when they see developed neighborhoods, they don't really
Do you think,
and that really troubles me. It's like, you know.
Do you think that's not just part of the curiosity, though, for travellers, is to see things that you wouldn't see back home? Because if you see a developed neighbourhood, it's like, oh yeah, well, we have those, you know. And yet when you see something that is much more underdeveloped, you haven't seen that before.
I think it's this idea that people already have, you know, when they get on the plane coming to Africa. That's what they have in mind. And actually when they connect, you know, what they have in mind to what's there, that's like, oh yeah, you know. So
do you think they're taking pleasure in it?
Of course. I know somewhere, not here in Rwanda, you know, slum tourism is a thing.
Yeah, there is actually on Netflix an entire series called Dark Tourism, which goes around some of the, I don't know if it goes around the slum tourism, but it definitely goes around the dark areas.
I know, like some slums that have become tourist, you know, destinations, and to me that's really sickening. Like, you know,
does it not bring any economy to the poorer neighbourhoods to have people going there?
No, I really. There'll be a different way of developing the neighborhoods than just coming and actually.
What would you do? What would you like to see happen with that instead? Like,
there's also cultural tourism, which I really love, but sometimes I don't think people really understand the difference between poverty tourism and cultural tourism. Because, you know, like the lifestyle that poor people are living, you know, people will just maybe interpret it as the culture. I'll give an example. I've seen tourism of like cultural tourism where people come and then they walk 5 miles to go, you know, fetch water. And then they'll go with jerrycans, you know, and then, you know, they kind of have that experience, kind of, you know, spending a day in the village. And to me, it's like walking 5 miles to go get water.
What, the tourists go to walk 5 miles to get water?
Yes, as an experience. Or go, you know, do go do the work on the farm under the sun with the baby on the back, and then they imitate that. So to me, it's like, yes, that's the life that they're living. That's not the culture. That's poverty.
That's a bit weird.
You know, you know, if they could, they could have running water in their homes. So that walking like a mile, you know, 2 miles to go get water is not culture. So then this. Tour operators or like everyone who is doing this kind of tourism, they should really understand, like be able to understand the difference between poverty tourism and cultural tourism. I think that's what you should ask yourself before you do the experience. So this life, if this person had an option, would they still do what they're doing as their culture? If they can still do it, and then maybe that's culture.
But if they wouldn't still be doing it, then that's poverty,
then that's the condition they're in. So don't. It's like finding someone in the ditch, and then you go down, and I want to feel it, like to actually feel how you're feeling, and then you don't take them out. You just leave them. Or like
experiencing it doesn't give anything to the person who's living it.
You know.
Okay. What do you think most surprises people when they come to Rwanda? Like, what do you see in your classes where people, what do you think they enjoy the most?
I think it's the Rwandan hospitality. You know, we are very, very friendly. You know, the hospitality can be even, you know, kind of annoying. I'll give you an example. Yeah. So to express hospitality, we give more food, we give drink, and again, coming back to my homestays experience, you know, with the students and the host families. So the host families will really want to like feed their guest, and you know, like they'll have a bowl and then a plate, and then they'll scoop food out on the plate of the guest, and the guest will eat, try to finish, to be respectful, to show they love the food. and then they really, eat, try to finish. Before they finish, to be a good host, a Rwandan will scoop more food and then put them.
So you can never finish the
Yeah.
plate. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for a Rwandan, they're being nice, like they're giving more, to the guest. And then for the guest, they want to be respectful and try to finish. We had an experience where one kid just busted out and cried because she didn't know what to do. So
Oh, bless.
yeah, so I had to come in and say, hey, please, when you're full, just say, I'm full.
What's the weirdest cultural difference that you've ever encountered? Have you ever seen something going like, what?
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a lot. Okay, in one example, like one very, very simple example. So Rwanda's way is used to like shaking hand, like I'll meet you today and then I shake hand, and then evening when I meet you I shake hand again, like tomorrow when I meet you I shake hand. I was working with an American, company, and then one morning, the first morning I shook hand, second shook hand, third, one lady said, hey Justin, we don't shake hands every day.
An American said that.
Yes.
I know that's funny because to British people we don't touch. We wave from a distance, but we always think of Americans as being very touchy people.
Then you can understand how we may be touchier than Americans.
Yeah. There's like a whole level from like British to American to Rwandan. It's like a level of touchiness. Yeah.
So, of course, I understand what cultural differences is, but actually it is very important to understand that being aware of the differences is just one thing, but actually embracing the differences and putting yourself in other shoes, someone's shoes is another thing, and embracing their, cultural difference, how they're different from you. Though of course I respected, what she said, and was like, oh, sorry. But I was a little bit, that Rwandan in me was a little bit hurt because she didn't want to,
Like we are in Rwanda, so get with the program.
Yeah. Of course, I've had so many experiences. And,
Do you think that there's much cultural difference between countries in East Africa, sort of Kenya?
Oh yes,
DRC?
thank you so much for bringing that up. Because when people think of Sub-Saharan Africa, they just think it as one block, But there's differences, yes, differences. Like what we said, Rwanda is a very, kind of reserved culture. Congo, Kenya, Uganda, very expressive, So that's, a difference, and expressive not just in the way we speak, but also in the way that we share life, like eating in the streets. Kigali, Rwanda, we don't eat in streets. Kampala, they have food, street foods, and they eat in streets. So, yeah, we're different. Yeah.
I always feel like I feel very much like when I meet people from DRC, when I meet people even from Burundi, like you can tell what they think of you by the way that they like. If they like you, it's like hey, and if they don't, it's like But in Rwanda, I've known people for years. I still don't know what they think of me. Not really, you know what I mean? It's
yeah, we are reserved, and actually, like from a very young age, we're kind of encouraged to like contain, our emotions,
It's changing a bit with the younger generation, though, isn't it?
Of course, with the younger generation, there's more like exposure and I
think movies and other cultures and just young people being young people and being more expressive. It's interesting, yeah. I mean, I do feel like, I've been here for many years, and I do feel like over those years, it's feeling a bit lighter now. It's feeling, it always felt, there was that kind of lack of expression, that kind of, I feel like slowly it is relaxing a little bit. Like,
don't you think maybe it's because you're being used to the culture? That could be.
It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell.
Yeah, but I agree with you that because of the Rwanda, Rwanda openness now. Like so many people, like 15 years ago, we didn't have coffee shops.
No.
And now
ATMs.
Yeah, ATMs. Like, there's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
And with that, of course, people are meeting people, and yeah.
It's interesting.
Oh, just one thing that I have to finish with is the Relocation in Africa conference that I'm organizing
Oh, yeah.
in March. That's for relocation professionals, in Africa. That's for like real estate developers and agents. That's for country directors, and human resource directors. That's for like expat communities, and people that are doing business here. Because the theme of the conference is improving relocation experience in Africa.
Okay.
And we'll be talking about how to effectively onboard international staff, housing stability and price, and we'll be talking about entering African market and growing a business in Africa in March.
In March.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll put a link to everything.
Yes.
So anybody who's interested in that, we'll put a link to find out more.
But it's one of the it's the first of the kind of in Africa, and we have great speakers. We'll be talking about relocation experience, and because there's not a lot of resources available to orient people. So when people come to Africa, they just come with a lot of uncertainties, so we want to create more of these resources, like relocation, guidebooks, and culture, books. We want to make sure, we have relocation, agencies, in every country, so that we put more light on the continent. We don't want people to think of, like, when they think of Africa, they think of Africa as a dark continent. So we want to really, be talking about all these relocation issues and solutions, and
so people can kind of hit the ground running
very smoothly.
Sounds cool. Okay.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Nothing fell over. That's important.
Yeah.
Well done.